Hey everybody, my name is Joe Testa. I am the Vice President of Irish Relations for Zildjian, and that encompasses Vic Firth and Balter as well. And today, very excited about today's interview with a gentleman here who has the unique ability of combining R&B, jazz, and rock and putting it all together in his own way. He's worked with uh, people like Pat Metheny to Ravi Coltrane, John Patitucci, all the way up to his own thing with Fearless Flyers and Emily King. And then, of course, his own group, Kingfolk, and to which, to this date, I think has 2 Grammy nominations already. And they just released a new record called See the Birds. And if that wasn't enough, he is now the latest member of the Vic Firth signature stick family. So we're very excited to have him. Let's bring him on, the great and wonderful Mr. Nate Smith.
Yo, what's up,
Nate,
Joe?
how are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am well. And hey, I know this is supposed to be a timeless interview, but at the same time, I can't go without recognizing that you just had a birthday. So
Oh,
happy birthday,
thank you,
brother.
man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah, yeah. One more time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hopefully, there's many more to come.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you. I
So
appreciate
hey, that intro video we just showed was a little bit from the Vic Firth story behind the sleeves
that.
uh, we did there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Actually, let's get to that later because I do want to get your comments and thoughts about that. But before any of that, what I want to know really is about I want a little bit of a 411 on the new record,
Okay.
See the Birds, because I've heard little clips of it. I haven't gotten to the whole thing yet, but
Okay.
Chris showed me a couple clips, and man, it's killing, man.
Thank you.
Just give us a little bit of the background on that.
So yeah, See the Birds is the second of a Kinfolk trilogy. The first one came out in 2017, called Postcards from Everywhere. And this the first record focused on the music of my childhood and the music that was in my dad's record collection. It was like instrumental R&B before there was such a thing as smooth jazz. It was that thing where it was like soul instrumental music. um this record focuses a lot more on the music I absorbed growing up as a teenager. So there's elements of like rock and hip hop and um like sort of contemporary R&B around during that time. So this record reflects a little bit more of what was happening when I was developing my own relationship with music. This is around the time that I started playing the drums too. So I was, absorbing this music and then trying to like do my own thing with it. And so that's kind of where the record starts. And it also, I think, in a very cool way, captures like a snapshot of a working band, because this band had been playing a lot before we recorded. We did a lot of work in uh early 2018 and then late 2019, when we actually early 2019 and late 2019. So we recorded in June of 2019 and then in February of 2020. And
Mm,
so we our last session was right before the big lockdown.
mm.
And so I kind of sat on it for a little while and then went back and revisited it, and I was like, oh man, this sounds really good. This sounds like a band. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So around, I guess it was December, maybe this time last year, I started really putting the finishing touches on the record, and sort of decided that we were going to release it in March. I mean, release it. I'm sorry, release it in 2021. So I partnered with Edition Records and submitted the record to them in March, and we released it in September. So yeah, and we've been
Yeah.
touring and playing it, as much as we can ever since.
Yeah. And you have a lot of special guests on this one.
A lot of guests on this record.
So how did you orchestrate that, man? Like, and what was the thinking behind it? Because it's so great, man.
Oh,
Like,
thank
just
you.
all the names, you see all the names, and you're like, oh my gosh, man,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
powerful.
So it started, the sessions that we did in February. Um, started the kind of special guest thing. So Alma What is a member of the band, but she's also I kind of think of her as a guest vocalist too when she comes and sits in with us on records, you know.
Yeah.
You can see her live with us all the time. But we did a session with Joel Ross and Michael Mayo, who I've been following Michael for a while, and Joel too. They're both incredible. And so I wanted to do something with both of them together. And so we did that session in February. And then Kokai jumped on during one of those dates too. I'd been listening to him. I'd heard him with Steve Coleman. I'd heard him with Daphne. So I'd heard, he's one of the few guys I know that can rhyme in like odd meters, and make it feel natural, and also just an incredible like freestyle rapper. Like he's intense. So that happened in February. And then as I started thinking about, who could sort of round out the record, I started thinking about, okay, well, I have these couple of tunes that could go like R&B, or these couple of tunes that could go like sort of rock. And it was, one of the songs on the record called Don't Let Me Get Away was co-written by Alma. And Alma originally recorded the version, that the demo version. And we were going to use it. And then she and I had a conversation that was like, well, maybe what about a male vocalist singing this? And then I started thinking about who was I listening to as a teenager? What singers? And I thought about Mint Condition. Right.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's so cool.
And I was like, man, what about Stokely? Well, actually, we kind of both, with the light bulb went off, like, what about Stokely? And I said, okay. So I shot my shot on Instagram. I sent him a DM, I said, hey, man, he's also a fantastic drummer.
Yeah, that whole group is like, seems to have this drumming thing in their DNA. It's crazy.
I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. So, it turns out that he was actually following my page. So we started the conversation and he was down, and I sent him the tracks and he recorded it. It was incredible that worked out. And then actually the last 3 guests that were added to the record, Regina Carter, who's on a track, she did it all. Everybody cut at home because we were all locked down.
Right. Yeah.
So Regina, I'd met in 2012. We did a tour together with Joe Jackson, and we've been friends ever since. And so I hit her up and I was like, would you mind? And she was like, great. She sent me back all these great takes and we comped it together. It was like nothing. She just, and then the sort of the last 2 guests that ended up on the record were Vernon and Brittany. And so, the Vernon conversation was kind of like, if 16-year-old me could witness this, because, Living Color was everything.
Yeah.
To me, So when I got in touch with them, and he agreed to do it, and then he sent me the tracks back, I was like, I can't believe it. I'm listening to it, and I import his files, and I'm like, okay, so that's me playing drums, and that's Vernon Reid playing guitar, and this is really happening. Like, this is not a fever dream. You know what I mean? Like, and
it's
then
funny you should say that. I just a few months ago had a lunch with Will Calhoun.
Yeah. Yes.
And he was just, we were having, we always get into conversations about history and stuff. And he was just telling me that period of time when they all came together, it was just amazing. So yeah, I totally can see you being pumped on that.
Oh my gosh. I was obsessed with Living Color, man. I was, if I could have smoked Living Color, I would have. If I could like freebase I would have freebased that music. I mean, everything they did, all of their, I would, every performance they did on TV, it was like, okay, I got to record Saturday Night Live, the Grammys, anything they did where Living Color was playing. I had to. Arsenio, they had some great performances on Arsenio.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then, the last sort of last guest who joined the record was Brittany Howard. And I, texted her a link to the rough mix, and I said, there's a song I'm working on for my dad, and she was like, I would love to do it. And there's a really funny text thread of us going back with lyric ideas. Hers were way better. There's a reason she has the Grammys,
Yeah.
And so and she did it at home and just knocked it out, man. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful record. So that's kind of the sort of the long arc of how all the guests
Did you find that like doing the record from a bunch of different studios, really, because it's everybody's home studio? Did you find that did it lose anything for you, or was it still cool?
It was great. I mean, obviously, man, I prefer to be in the room. I
Right.
would love for everyone to be in the room together. Um, because I feel like there is a very special thing that happens when musicians gather and everybody is kind of has the same intention.
Yeah.
Um, but she everyone who has their own, everybody's home studio thing was really cool. I had a great mix engineer, Adrian Olson, who mixed the record. So he was able to take it all and kind of make it,
Cohesive.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
so
would assume there's some good and bad in both, right? Like it's if you're at home, you feel more comfortable. Maybe some stuff comes out that you don't feel that stress, but then maybe having that stress of being under the red light kind of
yeah,
like brings something out. I don't know. It's hard to
yeah,
know, which is
it's hard to know. I don't do any um remote like home recording sessions.
you
People
don't.
ask me all the time for 'em. I don't do it because I actually really respect engineers and engineering, you
Yeah.
know, and
Oh
my
yeah.
engineering chops are okay. Like I can get the sound to the thing and the meter lights up and it's okay, I guess it's working. But to actually to actually get a sound out of a drum and actually to have the right gear and
Yeah.
the right mics and stuff, I think everybody there's a position that everybody plays on the team, and
Yeah.
and so I really trust recording it, tracking and mixing engineers who are good at what they do to make it sound the best it can sound.
Yeah. Those guys are like it's an art form in and of itself.
It really is. It really is. I
Yeah.
am, and we were, last year D'Angelo did his verses thing, and it was him and DJ Scratch, and one of the things that I tweeted after the verses was over is like, I want to give a shout out to all the engineers who made those records because DJ Scratch was just spinning the records. It was just D'Angelo playing and Scratch was spinning records. And so, um, I wanted to give a shout out to all the engineers who made those records. So for the first one, Bob Power, I guess, was on Brown Sugar. He did a lot of that. And then
Oh,
Russell
that is
Elgato,
cool.
did Voodoo. And then Ben Kane did this Black Messiah record. And so I kind of wanted to shout him out. And just to, because that's a big part of what makes a record sound the way it sounds.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost another member of the band. It's like,
Almost, yeah. Yeah.
or it is really.
I think actually for the Black Messiah tour, I think Ben was on the road with D'Angelo, like kind of mixing front of house for him and
Oh, no
like
kidding.
helping to recreate the record. At least
Man,
for a few shows. Yeah.
yeah, when I saw D'Angelo at Radio City Music Hall
Mm,
with Quest playing.
okay.
That had to be, oh my gosh, 2005 or something.
Oh yeah.
That was I never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
was unbelievable. I still remember to this day. It was like one of those. There's a few that
Mhm,
hit you hard and like stick with you. That was one of
mhm.
them. That was incredible.
Man,
So
I saw that band um in 2000 in Richmond, Virginia. So,
so
or
maybe it was that tour. I don't remember. It was early 2000s. You're right.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't.
yeah. I saw that band because that was right around, Voodoo came out in 2000. So they were touring that record for a while.
Mm,
But he came home, he's from Richmond. So he came home to Richmond with that band with
wow.
I think it was Jeff Lee Johnson and Pino and
Jeez,
Questlove, James
that must
Poyser.
have
I
been
mean,
nuts.
just an amazing, amazing band, right?
Yeah.
And in his hometown, just it was an amazing, that was an incredible show.
Yeah.
Um, but he's
Yeah.
he's incredible, man. He's an amazing artist. Just one of those
Yeah.
guys that you just kind of sit back and watch him just create this
Yeah.
world. He
Yeah.
builds a whole world.
Speaking of it, have you ever had a chance to play with Pino?
Yes, we did a record
Oh my
together.
gosh.
Yeah, yeah, we did a record together for Jose James. Jose James did a Bill Withers tribute record,
Oh my
and
gosh.
the rhythm section is uh, Chris Bowers on keys, Brad Allen Williams, who plays in my band, on guitar, Pino on bass, and me on drums. We're playing that music.
Wow, I got to check that out.
Yeah, 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 it was so much fun playing with Pino, man. He's the best. And I really, really hope, man, we were gonna do a session recently, but it got postponed because of, everything going on.
Yeah.
So I do hope I get a chance to play with him again. He's just, and also one of the, nicest people too. Like,
I've never had a chance to meet him, but I mean, playing wise, it's just,
oh yeah.
So,
Untouchable.
how would you, I mean, how would you compare the first and the second records? Like, what would you say the musical evolution? I get the concepts of the two,
Mhm.
one being, what you explained, but how would you explain that evolution from one to the next?
Man, thank you for that question. I think what we captured on this record is much more of a band sound than
Mm,
the record we did before. The record we did before was much more of a studio record. And it was like, it felt like, bringing in your A-list guys and doing the thing, but this wasn't a band that was working. We were kind of building the record from scratch. This record feels like we've been playing this. This is a band that plays together. We know there's a looseness, but also there's this, it's kind of a strange thing to say, but the band is really loose, but it's also really tight too.
mm,
There's this thing that we can do because we've played together, particularly with me and FEMA. We've played together a lot. FEMA Efron, who plays bass in the band, we played together a lot. And so there's this familiarity in the band and in the band sound. And we also stretch out a little bit more on this record. The first record, the solo thing, or extended improvisation thing, is not as prevalent as it is on this record. We're really playing on this record, and everybody gets a chance to do their thing. So in that respect, it feels a lot closer to what the live show is.
Did you get to play some of the material before you recorded it?
Yes, yeah, we
See,
had been.
that is the jam right there, man.
It
That's
is.
how it used to be done.
Yes, yeah. A band would be working, right? You'd have your tour, or you'd have your residency at a club, and you'd develop the music. You'd play it night after night. You'd see how it works in a room. It's like
Yep.
stand-up comedy. You
Yeah.
develop your bit, you go on the road, you test it out. Oh, this works here. This doesn't work here.
Yeah.
And so you start to think, okay, well, this is what it is, and
Mhm.
then you go into the studio and you try to capture that thing, um, which I think we really did with this record. So in terms of an evolution, I think that's the biggest one. This is the sound of a working band.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to the whole thing top to bottom. Like I said, I had clips of it, and all of them, all the clips that I got to hear were like, I couldn't. I heard it before you released it,
Right.
and then
Right.
I'm like, nah, I got to get the thing. I just haven't
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
chance. But
Yeah.
it's every one of the clips couldn't wait, to hear the whole thing as a piece. But
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
that's awesome. So we went real deep right away on that stuff. But I wanted to ask about. I was dying to ask you about that. But I do want to, for those who are new, and kind of uh, I can't assume everybody knows you, even
Mhm.
though they should.
Mm.
So let's go back to the beginning a little bit of Nate Smith. I'd
Mhm.
love to get like, how did how did you get here,
Mhm.
where you are today, and like what were the key milestones that got you there along the way, and who helped you? You know what I mean? Those kind of.
Oh.
So like, I know you were born in Virginia, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
so, and we don't have to go way deep, but I want to just give a nice overlay, what I mean, for
Sure.
people.
Sure, man. I grew up in Chesapeake, Virginia. My dad had a big record collection, which I started sort of, listening to and absorbing early. I didn't start playing the drums until I was about 10 years old, 10 or 11 years old. And that was mostly because I watched my older brother play. He had a little drum set and he played
Oh,
it, he played for fun. And so I would watch him and kind of study what he was doing. And then, one day I just kind of set the drums up and decided to give it a shot, and see what I could do. And I'd been listening and sort of watching a lot of videos of drummers play. And I just kind of wanted to mimic what they were doing to see if I could get a sound. And once I started, man, it was just, I was obsessed with it. I just wanted to play all the time.
is your brother still play?
No, not really. Man, I gave that fool. So I had this old Slingerland drum kit I bought when I lived in Richmond, and I bought it used, put new heads on it, I kind of like refurbished it. And so he was saying, man, and this was years later, he says, man, I really want to get back into playing, man. So I gave him my kit. I said, man, no, go for it, man. Yeah, set it up, man, that thing is like sitting in the corner Nobody's playing it. Now, my nephew has started to play a little.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, his son, who's I think he's 18 this year, he's starting to play a little bit, and he enjoys it.
Oh, that's
So
good.
so it's not going to waste. But
Yeah.
I always have words for him about that drum.
Well, with
Uh,
the holidays coming up, you'll have some more words, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm gonna go see him. I'll be like, man, okay, because somebody's got to play this thing, man. Y'all need to start playing this, or it's coming back with me. Um, but all through high school, I was doing marching band and
Oh,
drum set, and also like jazz ensemble. Like I was just any opportunity to play, I was playing. I didn't start playing in church until much later. I started playing when I was about 16, 17 in church.
hmm.
I grew up in a quieter church, which wasn't like the, Baptist church. I didn't really get exposed to that until later on in my development. Um, but once I got really serious about music, I decided I was going to be a music major in college. And I got into James Madison University, where I went and studied. And I was there for a year before I realized that maybe I would be best served by a music industry degree as opposed to a performance degree, because I
Mhm.
really wanted to know more about like the studio, songwriting, production, that kind of stuff. But I still played in all the student ensembles, all the
No, wait,
stuff.
wait, wait, wait. Let me stop you there. So up to this point, though, what were your influences? What was like shaping Nate Smith's journey
Yeah.
here?
Okay. So when I started to play the drums, there were a few bands that kind of came into my life and was like, I didn't know you could do that. I need to learn how to do that.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so of course, Living Color was one. We talked
Mhm.
about them.
Yeah.
Um, Sort of where were you on the day you heard Living Color? You remember
Yep.
everything about it.
Uh, Yep.
I was way into the Police at the time too.
Mm.
And we're all into the Police, but I was really, when Sting broke away from the Police and did his solo thing. I remember seeing the documentary he put out called Bring on the Night, which had
That's
all that.
amazing.
It's amazing. It's one of my
And it's
favorite.
favorite records too,
Yes.
man. The
Yes.
double record. I still to this day listen to it's unbelievable, man.
Unbelievable. That band. That band. I mean,
So on
those
fire.
cats, Kenny Kirkland, Daryl Jones, Branford Marsalis, and Omar Hakim. And
It's
Omar
it's
Hakim,
it's inconceivable, really, when you think
how
about
good
it.
is it, right? It's
Yeah.
inconceivable. So, but watching that movie and watching Omar, that was really the thing. When I saw
That
Omar,
yes. And I've talked to him about this, dude.
man, watching him, he first of all, he was playing, he plays his ass off the whole. I
Yeah.
mean, Omar,
Yeah.
he's Omar Hakim.
Yeah.
But then he was so cool in the whole movie. Like he was the coolest cat in the movie, right? He plays the shit. He's got the shades on. He's playing I Burn For You. He's killing it. It's just so good, man. And I was just like, okay, I want to do that. Like this, whatever this is, I want that. Then I remember when Prince put out Sign of the Times,
Mhm.
and he put out that live concert film too. And it was that band with Sheila E. on drums.
Yeah.
And it was the funkiest, tightest band I'd ever heard. And the way the drums sounded on that record, I don't know how she was tuning that snare, but that thing was perfect. And I obsessed over that record. I obsessed over that live band, that concert, memorized all of her fills. Like it was deep. So if I had to point to three things, I'd point to those three things. But jazz entered my life sort of. Jazz was always there, but it kind of came back around because in the Sting movie, Branford talks about playing with Art Blakey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, and I've obviously had heard of Art Blakey, but I never really listened to Art Blakey. So I went back and I found records with Branford playing with Art Blakey. And I remember finding this record called Album of the Year. This was near the end of Art's life. And it's an incredible record. And I remember playing it and I was like, how does he do that press roll? How does he get his cymbal to sound? Like, how does he do it? Another
Yeah.
record I became obsessed with. So my way in was always listen to something, obsess over it, mimic it to death until I can sort of create my own approximate version of it. So that was what was happening up until college.
Okay. All right. Sorry. I had to have that because
No,
that really helps.
absolutely. So in college, I'm playing with all the groups. I get a little deeper into jazz because I'm surrounded by jazz studies majors who are giving me the records. I discover the Miles Davis quintets with Philly Joe and Tony Williams, and that's a whole well of, oh my God, and I discover Keith Jarrett with Jack DeJohnette, and I'm like, okay, how is he doing that? How is he getting this dynamic range? So all of that's happening, and I start writing songs, I start arranging music, I start getting into this. Writing and arranging began kind of in high school for me, but I got more serious about it in college, and I wanted to write as much music as possible.
And what are you writing on? Keyboard mostly?
Piano, yeah. Piano mostly. Yeah, my mom bought a piano when I was in about 5th grade, and she made everyone in the house take lessons, and we all quit. But but I was the one who circled back and decided to take what I had learned and maybe try to build from that sort of by ear, and also just kind of learn how to play some of these great songs I was hearing on the radio. Like, how do you play? I mean, how does Stevie Wonder, Ribbon in the Sky go on piano? How do you play that? So I'm kind of like teaching myself, and this continued through high school and college too. That was kind of another track, but a couple of things happened in college that were sort of big life. You mentioned Who Helped Me.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were 2 sort of big events. So in the summer of 95, I was in the Disney Grammy jazz band at Disney World.
Oh, cool.
At Epcot in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And in the band was Andre Hayward, who great trombonist from Houston. And so he had just played with Betty Carter. He had just done Betty Carter Jazz Ahead, the residency that she created, to bring young musicians to play. And he was like, man, you should meet Betty. You should meet Betty. So it was Andre who introduced me to Betty. And the following January 96, I went to do you remember IAJE?
Oh yeah, International Jazz Association. That was my favorite show, man.
Yeah,
I missed that show so bad. That was happening.
It was happening. It was a great conference. A lot of cats came together. It was a really cool hang.
They now have Gen, Jazz Education Network. It's kind of trying to go back to that. You know what I mean? What was different? Yeah. But anyways, go ahead.
So that year, my student band from James Madison, we went to IAJE to perform, and Dave Liebman was playing saxophone with us during that time.
Yeah,
it was really, really cool. But Betty came to the end of our set. Andre brought her over. He's like, I want you to hear Nate Smith. So he brought her over, and I met her, and she was like, oh, I love the way you sound. You sound good. Yeah, it's nice to meet you. The whole thing. And 6 months later, she called me to do Jazz Ahead, or maybe 4 or 5 months later, to do Jazz Ahead in New York.
The week culminates on Saturday night with a performance at the 651 Art Center in Brooklyn. Carter doesn't decide exactly whose music she'll use until minutes before the concert.
Open the second half with Brandon's ballad.
I'm excited.
Yeah?
Drummer Nate Smith sums up the anticipation everyone feels.
I've been ready all week. Well, no, not really all week, but I've been ready since about 7.
Already. You won't have to be reaching around and everything.
Well, I'm not really ready.
So we're gonna put
I'm working on getting ready. I'll be ready at 8. I'll be ready when she says 1, 2, 3. That's when I'll be ready.
And that
you're
was
still in school, right? So you get that call. That must have been like, what?
Oh man, it was incredible. It was, it was my senior year, so I was like, what's going to happen now? And this was something that kind of opened up a door of possibility for me,
Yeah.
And so I went to Jazz Ahead, and it was my first time seeing musicians who were my age playing at a super, super high level, and who were working musicians, So she had 3 drummers that year. So myself, Byron Landum, who had the gig with her, he's from Philly, great jazz drummer. And the 3rd drummer was a young cat from Houston, Texas, who I'd never heard, named Eric Harland, right?
Dude, you're speaking my love language right now.
And so Eric walks in, and he sits down and he sounds like Eric Harlan. Like Eric has always sounded like Eric, you know? He's always sounded that good. And so the thing that it really sort of lit in me was, wow, man, you know, number one, I got to practice, but number two, there are so many possibilities that I didn't know about. You know, I didn't know about this community of musicians. I didn't know that there were cats who came from musical cities where they had their whole crew in town. That, you know, like the Houston crew or the Detroit crew. Kareem Riggins was there that year too. He was there visiting. Yeah. So I just learned a lot about, you know, the world is big. The music world is big. And so it just started me kind of down this path. And I worked with Betty on and off until she died in '98. But it was, you know, I would point to her as one of the biggest breaks for me. And, you know, the second big break was a year later, I met Dave Holland at Virginia Commonwealth University. And that was life-changing too, you know?
The Dave Holland thing must have been another big.
Absolutely. Huge deal.
Yeah. So between, you know, Betty and Dave, I mean, and everything in between, you had there was a pretty strong jazz background going on there as far as at this point, right?
Yes.
So what makes you pursue the pocket thing? Go like pocket oriented projects. Like, how did you get back to that, or not get back to it, but come back to it, or.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I kind of never left it. I was always playing, you know, the pocket thing was so big, such a big part of my upbringing, you know, like the music that my dad was listening to was Grover, Jazz Crusaders, Earth, Wind and Fire. You know, it was Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
So R&B was never far from my orbit. You know, I was always listening to it. I was always playing along to it. I was always kind of absorbing it. And with that period of my life, kind of studying jazz and playing jazz and wanting to get better at it, I was also a working musician living in Richmond, Virginia, too. You know, so there was a 4-year span when I lived in Richmond, Virginia from 1997 to 2001. This was after I met Betty and right around the time that I met Dave, but I hadn't sort of committed to the idea of moving to New York, you know. And so I was a working musician in Richmond, and I was playing covered gigs. I was playing weddings. I was playing, you know, bar gigs. I was playing with funk bands. You know, I was playing with a lot of different people. And that kind of real world experience of playing in a room for people who are dancing or grooving or whatever, that's invaluable experience. You know, that's like, that was to me the real music education, you know, because it teaches you how people receive music in real time, you know, and that's something that you kind of don't get in a practice room. You know, you can't get in a practice room. So doing that was very important to my development, not only as a jazz player, but also as playing R&B and soul and hip hop and stuff, you know. It's
super well-rounded. It's great. So all right, you give me getting out of college and then what?
So I get out of college. I spend 4 years in Richmond, which are very important. And that first year I meet Dave Holland. And Dave calls me to do a couple of sub gigs for Billy Kilson, who has the gig at the time. And so 99, I played with Dave. I did one concert with him. And then 2000, I think I did another concert with him. And it starts to dawn on me. It's like, man, you're going to have to leave Virginia and go to New York and go for it. You know, if you really want to play this kind of music at this level and make a living, you got to be up there. So in 2001, a week before 9/11,
Oh, geez. I was just about to ask you. 2001, yeah. I'm like thinking, oh,
yeah.
no.
Oh, yeah. I packed up my van. I drove to New York, and I began my 19-year, stay there. And
let me tell you, man, that was the best. That late 90s to about 2010, maybe. Maybe not 2010, maybe earlier than that. That was a great time in New York, man.
Mm-hmm.
There was some serious stuff going on. That just
was.
You were right there in the pocket, man. You were right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I remember that was right before St. Nick's Pub closed. They were doing sessions at Cleopatra's Needle. Obviously, Smalls is still standing,
Yeah.
And so when I got there, I did what cats do. I went out to sessions. I started just like sitting in. I started playing with people. And but thankfully, I had this other part of my career that was, writing and producing for people. So I was doing like indie R&B projects. I was doing like kind of these indie like instrumental R&B things that were kind of keeping the lights on when, I wasn't getting called for gigs, But the biggest break came in April of 2002 when I went on tour with Dave for the first time. We went to Europe. And I was out with him for about 3 weeks. And it was my first European jazz tour. And obviously a life-changing experience in many ways. Not the least of which was just playing with Dave, like just to get to play with him and Chris Potter and Robin Eubanks, Steve Nelson,
Was this your first time to Europe?
I'd been to Europe before. I went to Europe with a gospel group in the early 90s. Okay. But it was a kind of a brief. It was less of a thing, This was more of a like, okay, we're playing for audiences who are coming to hear us. And I was going in as the sub for Billy Kilson,
Yeah.
So there was that too. There was this level of, okay, I gotta have my stuff together.
Yeah, I gotta bring it.
I gotta bring it because this is a big deal,
Yeah.
And people were coming there expecting Billy, and they would tell me that too. They would, audience members are very bold, sometimes they come up to you, yeah, man, I was really sad when Billy Kilson wasn't here, but you sounded good. And it's like, thanks.
You're like, I don't know. Is that a compliment?
Yeah, like, thank you. But it was cool, man. It was a really great life-changing deal for me. And a year later, August of 2003, Dave offered me the gig full time. And I toured with Dave for the next 8 or 9 years on and off with that band.
Wow.
And during that time is when Chris Potter started Chris Potter Underground, and with Adam Rogers and Craig Taborn and FEMA. And that was another sort of circle that I kind of became involved in, like that 55 bar scene, which is where that band was developed. That band was developed at the 55.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a time, man. It was a time. The 55 bar was a huge part of that development too. Huge part.
I love that place.
Yeah.
It's 55 bar still happening, right?
Still happening. Yeah. They did a big fundraiser. I was a part of it. They had a big fundraiser to try to help them sort of dig out, because they, obviously the pandemic took a toll on them. And so, and I think they're still standing, man. I think they're still hanging in. Yeah. So I really hope that Scott and the whole crew there, man, I hope that they can keep it going, because it's a very important place.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, okay, that's amazing. So, all right. So let's get into like the balance between music and business of music.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like being a musical director is a different hang. Like talk to me about that. Like,
okay.
How does it feel to be the musical director versus just the guy who comes in and plays?
Yeah. With this particular situation, so I've been MDing Britney's band since we started in August of 2019. And, you know, being an MD, it just kind of means a lot more conversations with everyone involved in the ship, you know. So I have a lot of conversations with production, I have a lot of conversations with management, and then a lot of conversations with musicians about, you know, um, what we're doing on stage and what we're playing. And to be fair, I mean, you know, the sort of official musical director thing was most important during the rehearsal process for Britney's
Yeah.
band, because we were kind of putting the show together and just kind of like listening back and figuring out ways to make the show sound good, you know. Um, but you know, to her credit, Britney is very clear about what she wants musically too, and so and all of the musicians in the band are great musicians, you know. So everybody brings a certain amount of, you know, a high degree of professionalism, but also creativity to the thing too. So everybody is just kind of like, you know, their own sort of musical director of their thing. So by the time it comes down to us figuring out what the set is and who sings where and who's featured where, that's kind of the easy part because the cats have done so much of the work, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, as more opportunities like that come around, for me, how it'll evolve, you know. um Leading a band, sort of being the leader of my own band, um it does give you a lot of respect for all of the leaders that you've worked for in the past, particularly in the jazz world,
Oh
because,
yeah.
you know, jazz band leaders are making miracles happen every tour, you know. It's like the money is so low and the travel is so brutal, and it's very difficult to take a jazz band on the road and pay everybody respectably, and, you know, route the tour so that it's not killing everybody, you know. It's really difficult, especially touring Europe, because Europe is a one night, uh you don't play longer than one night in any country or any city. So you're going to be moving every day, you know. So keeping the energy cool, keeping everybody happy, um, making sure that everything is working financially, you know,
Mm.
those are difficult things to do. Difficult. So when I started touring my own band, it gave me a lot of respect for, Dave Holland in particular, who was always great about managing all of that, you know,
Yeah.
along with just the everyday stress of, you know, flying every day and dealing with airlines and dealing with lost bags and
Yeah.
delays and all the stuff, you know. He was very cool about it. I never saw Dave lose his cool. I never saw, I mean, I would tell that he was frustrated, but he was always cool and cordial to people. He never let it escalate to a point where it got, you know, crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just gained a lot of respect for that. And as a sideman, I can appreciate not having to make those decisions. When I was out with Pat, it was just, okay, you show up ready to play.
You know,
And
like this is kind of a vacation.
I mean, it's like, man, it's like, you know, it's a vacation until sound check and performance. And that's when I work, you know.
Yeah.
But everything else was so dialed in. And I learned a lot from that. I've been lucky, man, to work with really good band leaders, you know, and learn. And I've also worked with some not so good band leaders who didn't have that thing together. And
Which teach you a lot too.
it teaches you
Just
a lot, man. It
yeah.
teaches you a lot. It teaches you, man, okay, maybe you shouldn't try to overextend yourself. Maybe you shouldn't try to pay over your budget or do line up too many gigs back to back. You know, you give yourself some time to rest. That's important.
Yeah.
It's really
And
important.
the other part of the business that I find really cool to watch you do is building your own brand
Mm,
as not just a drummer, but
right.
I mean, not that that's a bad thing, but
Right.
you're building yourself as the artist Nate Smith.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big step, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard enough just to be a great drummer, great musician that plays the drums,
Yeah.
but then to say I want to have my own brand. So
Yeah.
when did that come to play, and how are you how are you how are you tackling that?
You know, man, I have watched and learned from really, really great musicians, you know. And not just the band leaders that I've worked with, but also just friends of mine who are great at it too. Whether they're drummers or not, just musicians, particularly instrumentalists who have figured out a way to be seen as more than just a player of their instrument, you know? And like you said, there's nothing wrong with being great at one thing or being great at you know what we do, which is play the drums. But you know, if you feel like you have more to give or more to say, more to offer, then you have to sort of figure out how to let people know that and let people know that you're good at it, you know? So one thing I learned touring with Dave, I can talk about Dave Holland for a long time, but because I just think he's such a great musician. But one thing I learned about Dave was that Dave was always working on multiple things. You know, he was always working on multiple things, and he was always working against a deadline. You know, so we'd be on the road with the quintet, and he'd be writing music for a big band session coming up. You know, and I would watch him do that. I'd watch him on his computer in the back of the bus working, you know, writing something. Chris Potter would do this too. Like they were always writing music for the next thing. And also just setting dates, you know what I mean? Because the procrastination thing can really hem you up. You can wait and wait and wait. But if you actually set the date and put yourself on the hook and book the studio time and book, then you know, you've got to write some music. You've got to come up with music, you know? And I would watch them do that. I would watch them say, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm going to work on this project. I'm going to, you know, and that was very important for me. That was very important to see them doing that. And I've also watched, you know, Jason Moran is a really good friend of mine. And I met Jason at Betty Carter Jazz Pit, you know?
Oh, cool.
And Jason is I've watched him do the same thing. I've watched him, you know, his sort of multi-genre, multi-discipline collaboration thing he does. It's really, really cool. He's also a really talented visual artist. So there's that. And he can sort of use that to show people another side of him, you know. So that's important, man, that people see, you know, everything that you have to offer as an artist. And you just got to show them and just do it, you know, and just constantly sort of be building it, which is frustrating sometimes because sometimes people can not want to see that part of you. They can just kind of say, oh, I just want to think of you as this one thing. But you know what I mean? But you got to keep showing them. You got to keep doing stuff that lets people know, oh, this person is, you know, better at this than I thought, or they're more than just this thing that I've kind of created in my mind, you know?
Yeah. Humans are quite amazing creatures and complicated.
Yeah.
Not easy. And people, I think we try to often categorize things into certain places because I think it's easier for the brain to kind of process.
Yeah.
But no one is any one thing, you know. They are several things. And you're right. I think the more things you put out there, the more people start seeing you as a fuller picture of you as opposed to just this one piece of pie, you know?
Yeah. It's something that you have to really be, I think you have to be intentional about it too. Intentional about how you present it, but also, you know, like authentic in the way you present it, you know, like this is really me. This is really my music. This is really my group, you know. That's the vibe.
I want to ask you a question, and I hope this doesn't get crazy because I don't know if this is maybe a third rail I shouldn't hit or not, but I am interested, and I think it would be cool to hear the story because Eric and I were actually talking about this.
Okay.
And your participation in writing that song with Michael Jackson.
Oh, wow.
I think Heaven Can Wait, right?
Wait, yeah.
There's a little story there. I mean, and it kind of ties into the music business and maybe not the always so good side of the music business. So, and I don't know what you feel comfortable talking about or not, but it would be cool to hear that story because when I found out you wrote, first of all, how in the world do you even get to the point where you write a song with Michael Jackson, right? And then how that all turned out, you know?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, man. The one thing that I've learned about pop music, and I think that's true. That was true then. This was back in 2001 when that record came out. And I think it's true now is, you know, 20 years later, I think the thing that, and I'll tell the story, but the takeaway is there's always going to be other people, right? Unless you are really, really cool directly with an artist, you know, I wasn't friends with Michael Jackson. I never even met him. I wasn't in the studio with him. It all happened through this like cloud of people, you know, like these gatekeepers and producers and songwriters and management and lawyers and all this like cloud, this thicket of people who all, of course, want a piece of the pie. It's Michael Jackson, you know, so everybody looks at that and they say, oh, it's a payday. Let's all get paid. And I thought the same thing. I'm writing a song for Michael Jackson. I can retire at 30, you know, 25, you know.
But I mean, first, like, how do you even get
Right.
you want to write with Michael Jackson? I mean, you got that. How did that opportunity even come about first?
Okay, so here's the beginning to the end.
Okay.
So you know, man, in high school, I started messing around with programming music, like programming beats, writing songs.
Okay.
I had a Korg 01W. My parents got it for me for graduation. I stayed on that thing for the entire summer between senior year in college. They couldn't get me off of it. And I was just writing songs on it all the time, right? And this was something that I developed all through college, all through, you know. So in 1997, I'm in grad school at VCU and I'm making tracks and I'm passing them around. I'm looking for people to write songs with, you know. So I make tracks and I'm passing them around to people and I meet this producer and he has a song deal with another producer, meaning that this other producer who's more established shops some of the songs that we give him. And if he sells one, we all get a little cut, you know, it's like how it works because this guy, his name was Fanatic. This is the producer above the producer I met in Richmond. Right. Okay. So there's already three guys, right? So there's me who creates this track that becomes Heaven Can Wait. And then I pass it along to this producer who, has a song deal with the other producer, Fanatic. So Fanatic is the plug. He's kind of the guy who has a publishing deal and he knows all the people and he's passing the CDs out. And at the time, he was hot. He was going like this, you know, in his career. So the song ends up in the hands of Teddy Riley, the great record producer, right? New Jack Swing, Michael Jackson, Dangerous, Remember the Time, all that. Like Teddy Riley is the guy. He's the guy. Right. And he's shopping songs to Michael Jackson for his new project, right? So while Fanatic has the track, he hires two lyricists to come in, at least two, I think there are more who are credited, to write the words to the song that becomes Heaven Can Wait. And so Heaven Can Wait is passed along to Teddy. Teddy plays it for Michael. Michael Jackson hears it and is like, oh my God, I love this song. I have to have it. I want it. And so the deal is done. What Michael wants, Michael gets, right? Yeah. So Michael wants a song. Now, this happens over the course of 4 years. In 1997 is when I make the track and give it to this other producer. In 2001 is when it ends up in Michael's
now, do you know at this time that it's making its way, or you just forgot about it?
I have no idea what's happening.
You moved on. Okay.
I'm playing $50 wedding gigs. And
you have no concept that Michael Jackson listening to your song.
No clue what's happening, right? I'm just playing open mics in Richmond, and it's my life is going a much different trajectory, right? So by the time this all happens, I've left Richmond and I moved back to Chesapeake. I'm back with my folks. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, man. I'm like, okay, am I moving to New York or what? It's kind of a dark time. So I think it's Memorial Day weekend. My phone rings. Memorial Day weekend, 2001. My phone rings and it's this guy who says he works for Teddy Riley. And he's like, Michael Jackson wants to record your song, you know what I'm saying? So why don't you, come by the studio, fill out the paperwork? I'm like, what? And I'm like, this is a joke. But, they kept calling me back over the course of the weekend. And then finally that following week, my lawyer calls me and says, my lawyer at the time calls me and says, man, this is real. They really want to do this. So we get on the phone, we start haggling, and all the producers, all the people, the guy who passed it to the other guy, who the good, and then this, they all come in and they want that piece of the pie now, because it's real. But in essence, the music that I created, the lyrics that these other people wrote. That's the song. That's actually the song. But these other people kind of passed it along and made the direction, made the plug. So they all kind of feel entitled to a piece of whatever the song is going to become, you know? So we slug it out. May, June, it's done, right? Signed the contract. I guess that's it. Now, there were a lot of rumors about how the credits would work. Would I get a credit for the song? Would I just be a guy who disappears and doesn't get any credit for writing the song? I didn't know, you know? So fast forward to October something, 2001, the end of October, 2001. And I've moved to New York, right? So the record comes out. Now, I hadn't heard the song. I didn't know what it sounded like. I had no idea. The first time I heard it was I was on 125th Street in Harlem, and there was this dude who had a blanket on the street, and he was selling incense and oils and also bootleg CDs and DVDs, right? He was just selling like outside. And I was like, oh, you know what? And I saw Michael Jackson Invincible. And I was like, oh, my song is on this album. And I picked it up, and he had done the whole thing where he photocopied the artwork and put the insert in. It was a really good bootleg, you know? And I was like, all right. And so I turned it over. I saw Heaven Can Wait on the I was like, okay, so it made the album. It didn't end up on the cutting room floor. It's on the album. So I took it to my girlfriend's house at the time. I put my Discman on. Remember that's, you know, and I played it, and there was Michael Jackson's voice on top of this beat that I made in my bedroom. Right. It was like it happened. It was real. And I was like, wow, okay. This is
I'm
real.
going to be buying an apartment.
I'm getting my Central Park apartment. I'm getting my all black Range Rover. It's going down. It's going down. I'm about to be balling, right?
Oh gosh.
Okay, so then a week later, the album comes out officially. The bootleg was an advanced copy. The album comes out officially. And I go to HMV Records on 125th Street, right?
Yeah, I remember.
Go in and I buy 2 copies of Heaven Can Wait because I buy 2 copies of Invincible because I want to be sure that, you know, that it's the same. I don't want to get the one lemon. So I buy 2 copies and I open it up and I see my name as co-writer and I see my name as co-producer. And it's like, boom.
Wow.
It happened. It happened, you know? Now, did I make any money? No, I didn't make any real money. I mean,
this is where the disconnect happens, right?
This is where the disconnect happens because
this is where the real music business comes in.
yes. And let me explain why. Because number one, there's Michael Jackson, and then there's Teddy Riley, and then there's everybody else, right? So Teddy taking the song to Michael, he's the producer of the record, you know, and he guided the sound of the record. He added strings to it. He made a beautiful record. But you know, that means that the lion's share of the money is going to go to those people. So, you know, by the time I got to the buffet, right? By the time I got to the buffet, they were just about to close it. They didn't have much food left. You know, they're not bringing out any more food. So whatever you see is what you get. You see 2 chicken wings and some like fried up mac and cheese. That's it. That's all you're going to get. They're closing. So I didn't make any real money. I might have made like a little piece of change from it, but nothing, certainly nothing to retire or buy an apartment from.
Yeah,
definitely not. And so I took away that, you know, but I do have the credit and I do have my name on the record, and it is a story that I can tell. And, you know, no one can take away the fact that I actually did write a song that ended up on a Michael Jackson record. You know,
yeah, I mean, that's incredible, and
it's incredible.
In the whole process, 4 years, and you don't even know what's happening. Would you say it's like 95% of that money goes to Michael, 2.5 goes to Teddy, and everybody else splits the other 2.5?
You know, I would
or
say
less than that.
I would say it's probably more like, I think Teddy gets a bigger piece than that. You know. Because Teddy has made hits for Michael, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
true.
They had huge hit records together.
Yeah.
So, you know, Teddy coming to Michael with new songs is, you know, this is a trusted collaborator.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Michael's going to take care of him. Michael's going to take me, okay, Teddy gave me hits. I'm going to take care of Michael. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to take care of Teddy. I'm going to make sure that he's going to get paid. Now, how Teddy decides to take care of people, that's up to him,
Right.
But there's so much of that. I think there's so much of who you are in the equation, and whether you have a publishing deal, whether you have a publisher fighting for you, whether you have a really good attorney fighting for you, those things, and also just who you are, like how much weight your name carries in the room. And at that point, I mean, I was nobody. I'm just this kid, substitute teaching in Chesapeake, living with his parents. I'm not, I'm nobody. I was like, okay. That clearly that's going to be Teddy and Michael and these songwriters, the lyric writers who had publishing deals, who had publishers fighting for them. So, people got their money. I just think that because I was the lowest man on the totem pole, that's just how it worked, But it was a very, very sobering, powerful lesson about how the music business really works, And
then one wonders, how do you then you got your foot in the door. I mean, your name's on the record.
Yeah.
So is it a way to jump up another couple levels and start getting more and you maybe become the next Teddy, you know what I mean?
Man, I'm so grateful that didn't happen to me, because I'll tell you this. This is another part of the story. For the first 2 months after that record came out, everybody took my calls. Every A&R, every VP, every publishing person, everybody, they all took my phone calls. Oh, this is the kid who wrote this song for me, because it's a good song, and it turns out to be one of the sort of like lasting songs from that record. Michael sounds great on it. It's got a really beautiful kind of nostalgic quality about it. It kind of points back to some of his earlier songs, so it was like one of those things where I had access, but what I didn't have was a catalog of 50 songs that sounded that good, which is what you need in that situation. I didn't have it. I wasn't prepared for the opportunity that opened up, for me. And I was offered production deals. I was offered publishing deals, but I'm really glad I didn't take them. I'm really glad. I'm really glad that I was naive and not that well versed, because I really feel like it would have changed the trajectory of this part of my career. I think that after all of the dust settled after Michael Jackson's record, which in the end didn't end up being as successful as everyone predicted. The record didn't, it wasn't a huge hit record. It was kind of he fell out with his label, and there was a lot of drama around the record.
Yeah, it wasn't Thriller, right?
Yeah, it wasn't Thriller. It wasn't Thriller. And I don't think he was ever gonna. There's how you recapture that.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe that's a bad example, but I get what you're saying.
But seriously, it's like there's the bar was so high for him. It's kind of impossible or even get close. But this particular record, it was kind of like it didn't perform as well as people thought, So I'm kind of glad that it kind of didn't work out that way. I'm kind of glad that I wasn't as prepared for it as, someone who is a little bit more savvy in that part of the business, because I feel like, honestly, as an artist, I needed time to develop. I needed time to develop my own voice, my own thing. Well,
it's cool because you took that and made it a positive experience. You know what I mean, like a learning experience.
Absolutely.
So that's cool. A lot of people would have been like devastated and just I'm done with it and I'm out.
And I was just, thank God for Dave, thank God for Chris, because those were the cats that came along and were like, nah, man, here's another way for you to make a living. You don't have to try to recreate this like one lightning in a bottle moment in your career and spend your whole life chasing that. No, man, you can just show up and play and you get paid. There was so much more dignity in doing that. You show up, you play the drums, at the end of the tour, you get paid. And that's it. And that's the transaction, whereas in this business, in this music business, there's this thicket of politics and people and who are you and are you famous enough and are you this and that. It's messy. It's messy.
Yeah. Well, going to a segueing that into a much cleaner version of the business.
Yeah.
Vic Firth signature artist, man.
Yeah.
So that's a business, it's a business, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit more closer to the good stuff,
Yeah.
First of all, Vic Firth, you know what I mean? Let's talk about your stick. I want to hear the story of your stick. I mean, I was part of it, but I want people to hear from your mouth because
Yeah.
I think it's way more interesting than hearing me talk.
Yeah.
But I mean, first, I remember seeing you perform on one of those Tiny Desk videos, and I remember reaching out to you cold.
Yeah.
And you hit me back, and
Yeah.
I was like, damn, you hit me back. I was like, this is cool, And so and then that correspondence went on for quite a while, and then
Yeah.
eventually, I think in the PASIC two before everything went crazy.
Yeah.
So it must have been 19.
Yeah. 19
November
maybe.
19, we kind of sealed the deal, I think, or maybe before, a little bit before that. I don't remember, but and then come a few years later, we end up saying, "Hey, let's do this with you."
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your stick and what you dig about it and how it came about.
I love it, man. I've always kind of been a 7A dude. That's kind of been my go-to size. It's the stick that feels like the extension of my hand. Weight wise, length wise, it's perfect. I think it's a little longer than a 7A, right? Like it's a little, and I love the beaded wood tip. This is the articulation thing that I do with the ride, and this shank gives me some kind of the wash I need from the cymbals too. It's funny, man. Sometimes when I'm playing, I just think about the fact that, man, I'll be looking at the stick. This is one of those things that kind of helps me stay in the moment when I'm playing, is just kind of marveling at how well the stick is made, and not, this is, yes, my name is on it, but the folks at Vic, the team at Vic they're actually people who made the thing, and you guys sent me 2 or 3 different sort of prototypes before we settled on this. And I played a bunch of stuff. I went to sessions, and as soon as I picked these up and started shedding with them, I was like, this is it. This feels like just an extension of my hand. It just feels like it just fits.
Yeah, I remember the first production line stick we had that you really enjoyed was the MJC5.
Yes.
But with a wood tip. You wanted a wood tip.
Yeah.
So that was kind of I think that if I remember right, that was the beginning. That was a foundational. Now your stick isn't that stick. Obviously it's different, but that was where we started. And then we kind of evolved from that into this really nice.
Yeah.
Nice tool.
Yeah. I mean, the weight is perfect. It's not a super light stick, but it's not heavy, or it's not bogging me down, when I play it. And yeah, I love the fact that the tip is so small, because it kind of gives me, when I play cymbals, when I'm playing time on cymbals, it gives me so many options about getting colors out of the cymbals, so I just love it, man. I've been so happy, and I've been getting a lot of shout outs from people who just really love the stick, from fellow drummers who've been playing it, saying they love the way the sticks feel. And so, it just makes me very happy to hear that other people are using it too, and getting something from it,
Yeah, it's getting out there. People are so far, all the feedback I've been getting has been very positive. So,
beautiful,
yeah,
man.
It's really well done. And then, you did for Vic, you did the stories behind the sleeves, which we showed a little clip of that up front.
Yeah.
What was that was a weird thing, because we had to do it. We were trying to, do these shoots in among, within the whole crazy world of what we were doing. But Chris Wells, I think, was the one that recommended the place. He said, "Hey, I know a place in Brooklyn. It's really cool."
Yeah.
So we went there, and it ended up being a great thing. And so
it was a great hang. It was a really cool hang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought in the band. I mean, you guys did some tunes, and talk about that a little bit, because it's if you haven't seen, for those of you who haven't seen it, please check it out. Look up Vic Firth, Nate Smith, and it'll come up in the feed, in the YouTube feed. But it's so great. It's like
it's really cool, man. It was our first time playing together since all the stuff, and it was also my first time playing in that room. I love that room, the Sultan Room in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Really cool place. Really beautiful place too.
Yeah, great people too.
Yeah, great folks. And so we got the band together. played it sort of as reduced, like a quartet vibe. And it was my first time sort of seeing some of them too since all the lockdown. So it was a really cool occasion. I think you can hear that we're happy to play with each other, in that. And it was a really cool. I remember that being like just kind of blown away by how patient the crew was, how cool and sort of low stress the whole vibe of the day was. Just really, really great. And yeah, we played a couple tunes from the new record, and I did a separate interview where I talked about the Sticks, and the way it came together was beautiful. It was beautifully edited, really turned out great.
And you did a lesson too, which was very cool.
Yeah, I did a couple of little demonstrations of some of the exercises that I grew up with playing in marching band, and then sort of moved them to the drum set to kind of demonstrate some of that stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. And so what other Vic Firth products are you using that you dig?
I love the brushes. I'm loving the mallets. I think that actually, you know what? Let me grab T1s.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I'm using. I really love them. You guys sent me this, and I don't know what the product is called, but this they're like, are they called the sweepers, or it's like a broom, like the kind of
the remix.
The remix, yeah.
You can combine the different. Yeah. Cool.
I love those things, man. I love those things. They sound great on records.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been playing. I've been using a couple of the beaters. You guys sent me the soft beater. That's really cool. I use that on a lot of sessions. I love that soft beater sound.
Yeah.
I love the way that one feels. I love the weight of it too. I've been kind of everything has been kind of Vic. Everything that I'm playing drums with has been Vic for me.
That's great.
Even I think I was using some of that stuff before we started working together officially. I really just love the products,
Yeah, that's great, because I mean that makes it worth it, for at least from our side. It's like you want guys to play the stuff because they love it, really.
Yes.
Not because they feel like they have to. You know
right.
what I mean? It's like I never want to, so
I'm digging it.
So when people dig it, authentically dig it, it's awesome,
Yeah.
So, well, we're excited about that stick. It's gonna be great. And then with Zildjian, I mean, man, you've been with Zildjian a long time.
Yeah.
We have I mean, you did the Zildjian Underground with Kareem.
Yep.
Actually, talk a little bit about that, and then maybe we'll play a clip from that.
Oh man, that was a great night, man. That was a great night. So many great drummers that night, man.
Awesome.
It was really cool hang. It was I got to hear so many cats too that I hadn't really had a chance to hear like in person, because we're all working, so we never really get to see each other play, But I got to hear Corey that night, Corey Fonville, who I've known a long time, and I've been watching Butcher Brown just take off, man. They're doing great things. I got to see Mark Cullenberg that night. I hadn't seen him in a minute.
Yeah.
And he's incredible. Zach Danziger he's one of a kind, man. He's got his own thing.
He definitely is one of a kind.
He's one of a kind, man. That guy, man. Give that guy the MacArthur Fellowship. Yeah. He's one of those dudes.
Yeah, talk about a guy who's way ahead of like everything, right?
Oh man.
If you want to know where tomorrow is, just see where Zach's at today.
Absolutely, man. That's a really good way of putting it. He's always been sort of on the edge of, especially with the samples and electronic things. He was doing that a while ago,
Yeah.
And and also just getting to see and work with Kareem again. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I'm just I kind of always, there's this kind of alumni thing with the Betty Carter guys. We kind of have this feeling that we all kind of went through this training together with her. So when I see the cats out here doing incredible things like Kareem or Eric or Casey Benjamin, who did Jazz Ahead, or Jason Moran, who I met at Jazz, it's like it's always great to see cats doing cool things. But I'm incredibly proud of Kareem. He's one of those guys that has really carved out his own niche, and he's so good at everything he does. So working with him, that I know some of his beat tape records, so I was like, man, I want to play on this one. I gave him like 3 songs. I want to play on this one. I love this one. And then he has this one interlude that's I think it's in 1716 or something, or something weird, something ridiculous, right? But that was one of the interludes we played, and Bernice Travis was playing bass on it, and he's incredible, So it was just a fun night, man. That was a fun night and beautifully shot in this, That was great. That was a highlight. Doing
That was a
that.
fun one. I want to do another one, but then the whole world went nuts. But
Yeah.
well, let's watch a quick clip from one of these. Dude, seriously, man. Like, how do you play with the time like that, man?
Oh,
like,
man.
you just mess with it like you have complete control of it. It's
Oh,
incredible
man.
to me.
Well, man, I gotta. First of all, Burness, man.
I know that's the thing. It's like you're going out in the left field playing with time, and
he's right there.
It's like it's no big deal to him.
It's right there. Man, I gotta. There's a book coming out soon, written by a friend of mine named Dan Charnas, that talks about Jay Dilla a lot.
Oh yeah.
The book is called Dilla Time, and it's kind of like I don't know if it's a biography of Dilla, but it definitely is probably going to be one of the more comprehensive books around his life, his influence, his musical output that's ever been written. And I really think, man, to talk about that time, that sonic manipulation thing, you kind of have to talk about Dilla, because he's the one guy that came along that not only influenced the way guys make beats, but he also influenced the way musicians play, And so all of the push and pull and this conflict in the time, this thing where, is the time straight? Is it swung? This space between the straight eighth note and the eighth note triplet that musicians are now always negotiating, that kind of starts with Dilla's influence on everybody doing that, So, and obviously with Kareem being there, Kareem studied with Dilla. That was his boy, that was kind of his protege,
Yeah.
And so Kareem was his kind of understudy and learned a lot from him. So it's really, really cool to have done that with Kareem there too. And just that whole night, man, felt really felt pretty epic,
Yeah, it was, man. And for us to sit there and watch all you guys bring your own thing to it was, and Kareem was so cool when we called him and asked him to do it. He was like, what do you want to do? He's like, man, I'm down with that. He was way into it.
Yeah.
And but it's cool because like you mess with the time, but you're not. It's like you're still disciplined enough to not do it just to do it.
Right.
Like it seems like there is a musical reason why you're doing it when you do it.
Yes.
And that's a discipline, I think. I don't know how you learn that, man. I don't even know how you learn how to play with the time like you do. But then to also not just do it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time and a place for it. I think that there is, I think the musicians have to agree on playing that way. When the only time I've ever heard it not work is when one musician wants to do that and the rest of the band is like, nah, we want to play. If there's one musician who wants to push an agenda on the rest of the band, that's never going to work, But if the people are coming together, musicians are coming together and agreeing on the time, oh man, that's when it can really take off, Yeah, it can really take off.
The other thing you do, I mean, you do a lot of things, but another thing that's really amazing is the ghost note thing you do. Your ghost note technique, which Can you maybe give us a little bit of insight to that?
Yeah.
How you do
Well,
that?
I stole a lot of it from the drummers. Again, the drummers I grew up listening to. So, you know, anything that sounds good about my left hand approach or ghost note approach, I stole a lot from Harvey Mason, Steve Gadd,
Yeah.
Omar Hakim. I gotta go back to Bring On the Night. I gotta go back to that movie because there's a police tune called Shadows in the Rain
Hmm.
that they do on that record. They do it kind of as this fast shuffle, right? And I remember listening to that, and it was my first time really understanding what that kind of comping on the snare drum sounded like, and I was listening to the way he played it, and it sounded like the drums were talking. Like it sounded like the drums were talking between the beats, And I was like, man, how is he doing that? And so I would sit down and of course that was my number one question was, how is he doing that? So I would sit down the drums and try to mimic it and try to get it that thing. And I don't know if I ever got it to sound as good as him, but I kind of came up with my own approach to it, which is kind of, really trying to get the ghost notes to speak, but not like disrupt the time, and it's not something that I am always thinking consciously about, but it's definitely something that I know is present in my playing because it helps me to sort of connect the beats, and it kind of keeps the momentum moving, keeps the time moving,
Yeah.
And
But
breath in the music. No, it just kind of puts a little breath in the music,
Yeah, it does. Have you met Omar?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweetest guy ever, right?
He's
Like
great.
you know that scene in the movie, it's totally digressing here, but you know the scene in the movie where they're at the table and Miles is talking about the business
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
whose name is on the marquee.
Yeah.
You gotta ask Omar about that.
Okay, I will.
It's so awesome. It's
I will.
amazing.
I definitely will.
All right, so you play other instruments and all that, but I'm curious, why was it that you said the drums are my man? That's going to be my jam. That's going to be my vehicle.
Yeah. To me, I've always believed that the drummer has the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
Like the band sounds the best from where I'm sitting, with the drums like right up front.
Yeah.
And I can hear every little nuance. I can hear, and I've always felt like I've always heard the drums first in everything I listen to, and also, man, I just love the possibilities, like the idea that this is an instrument that there are millions of sounds I can make. It's the battery section of an orchestra, of an orchestra percussion section in one instrument, And so all the sounds that all the colors, just the dynamic arc, all the possibilities with the drums, that's the thing that really amazes me about the instrument is everything that it can do and the way that it creates an environment for all of music. You can play 8 bars of a groove out front, and depending on what you're playing, it sets the whole tone for what's going to emerge from that. So I just love the drums. I just think that the drums are they kind of conduct the music in a way that no other instrument really does.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, cool. And then all right, so we're going long here. I don't know how long we've been. I could talk for you all day, but I do want to know your thoughts about new talent. Who you're seeing coming up that you're like, man, that you got to check this dude out. And there's a lot of them. You know what I mean? And don't feel like I don't want you to feel like you're going to leave anybody out or anything like that.
Yeah.
Who comes to mind offhand?
Oh man, there's so many great drummers. You can't throw a rock without hitting 12 great drummers. But in terms of people who've really been I've been watching and being inspired by recently, that are on the younger side. There's a young drummer named Savannah Harris. She's a great young jazz drummer. She's really good. She's playing with some really heavy cats, and she, the knowledge of the history of the music, and there's just so much cool stuff she's doing. I'm really into, man, who am I checking out? I feel like my Instagram feed is all drummers. It's just like, I open my phone, I'm just like, oh man, this person's killing, this cat's killing it, she's killing it, Joe Dyson, who's playing
Yeah,
with
Joey's great. I love
Joe is
Joey.
great. He's fantastic, man. Really, really great drummer, and just another drummer who you feel like he studied so much music. You know,
Mm.
he plays so much music so well. Um, obviously, you know, my buddy Corey Fonville, he's great.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even say he's up and coming. I think people know about
yeah,
Corey now.
yeah.
You know, he's here.
I feel the same about Justin Faulkner. You know, he's
Oh, yo, man, Justin
same.
is otherworldly. You know, his brother is a great drummer too. And I forget his brother's name. Younger dude. He's
Oh, I
in
didn't know
Philly,
that.
I think. Yeah. Fantastic young drummer. I want to say his name is Nazir or something. I have to look it up, but maybe that's his Instagram handle. Man, there's so many cats, man. So many cats. I'm Justin.
Yeah, I'm
Tyson.
putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Man, I mean, this like every time I can name like 15 other people, but I will say, man, Justin Tyson is kind of frightening. He's frighteningly good.
Yeah,
he's frighteningly good. Yeah, yeah.
excellent.
He's playing some drums, man.
and I know, you know, another thing for you is education. I know you're a big proponent of it.
Yeah.
I think, well, I'd like to know your takes on education. You don't have to go too heavy, but just more than just how to play, but teaching the bigger concepts of, you know, knowing our history, knowing the drumming history.
Yes.
Which it's, man, dude, I talk to younger cats and they don't even know who some of the iconic guys are. And I'm like, and I get it. I'm all into the digital thing. I think it's great. Like, you know, Instagram is a big, you know, like you know, you've really turned that into something. There's a lot of good things there. But I worry about the fact that the younger generation sometimes it feels like care less about the iconic guys, you know, and that's a history, you know.
It's a very important history. And I feel like, you know, the more we connect the past to the present, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. It's like, you know, a lot of educators teach the past as the past in this bubble of like, this was the golden age and music now sucks. You know what I mean? Okay. That's one thing. And I don't think that that's the most productive approach, but going up to a younger musician and say, man, you sound just like Idris Muhammad. Do you know who that is? And then play a clip of Idris Muhammad playing and then point to exactly the same thing that Idris did 40 years ago that they're doing right now. And it's like, you sound like him. You don't know it, but you sound like him, right? He did this, right? And then read about him, read about where he's from, read about who influenced him and point back, you know? So I kind of feel like it is important to let these younger musicians know that even though, you know, in this temporary social media bubble of like instant adulation and instant gratification, oh man, so killing, flame emoji, praise hands, you know, like everything is that the GOAT, everybody's the GOAT, you know what I mean? And it feels good. It feels good to get compliments. That never gets old, but you have to let people know, yo, the thing that makes me sound the way I sound is I checked out Max Roach and I checked out what he did. Pocket Change was inspired by Drums Unlimited, you know, like that was where it came from. It's like Max did it first. He did it like many years ago, you know? So, man, I don't know if you've seen the Summer of Soul documentary that Questlove directed. It's an incredible doc. There's a really beautiful moment of Max Roach playing with Abby Lincoln. And Max comes up and he's like sharp. He's got his glass. He's presenting his music and he's playing it. And it's so cool to see that. And it's like, yo, this is kind of what, like, I think about Questlove in the Tonight Show and I think about his glasses and his blazer and the whole thing. And I'm like, that's not that far away from what Max is doing. It's not that far. You know, this idea of the drummer being the band leader, the conceptualist, it's not that far. And so there's a connection between all of it. And I just think that if you can make it relevant to these younger musicians in a way that resonates with them, I think you can see them really starting to look back and say, wow, okay, not only did I not know about this other musician, but what do I do with that information now to be more creative now? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do I do with that? You know?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the short answer of that. That's something I could go
Go
on
on.
with. You know?
Yeah. I'm with you, man. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, so as we bring it to an end here, I want to know, is there anything current or future projects we should be looking out on the horizon for you? And or is there anything I missed that you want to get out to the people here?
Oh man, man, I'm working on a couple of things, man. I'm definitely going to be writing a lot more music this coming year. Kinfolk is going to do, kind of announcing this for the first time. We haven't announced it yet, but Kinfolk is going to do a concert in Memphis with members of the Memphis Symphony. And it's going to be, sort of Kinfolk with strings. And so
Nice.
all of the tunes that have string arrangements, and then I'm going to write string arrangements for the remaining tunes or co-write them or, so I'm very excited about that. That's going to be in May.
Wow, Vic Firth exclusive right here.
Vic Firth exclusive. Yeah, man. Air horn. Air horn.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. And I have a duo project with the great singer-songwriter Van Hunt. We've been working together. I've known Van since I think 2018 we met, and we've been sort of talking about this project that we're working on. And I hope that that's going to come out next year. I really do.
Cool.
And we're going to be touring. The Flyers are doing a new record soon.
Oh, cool.
So we'll be out playing next summer. And so there's the little things coming together, man. Little things coming together.
Kinfolk is out this year, right?
Kinfolk is out this year. Yeah, we're going to be touring in February. We start like a sort of Midwest and West Coast tour. And then we're going to go to Europe in May. And then we're doing some summer festivals in June and July. So, yeah, we're going to be busy.
Excellent.
Yeah, man.
Well, man. All right, so we're gonna wrap up. I think what we're gonna do here is we're gonna show a little clip from the Zildjian Berkeley Artist in Residence that you did.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, man, that was just amazing. That concert. I am so glad we filmed that concert. I was like, we got to film this. I know this is gonna be special, and man, it was dynamite. So I think it's just a great way to end this. And
thanks, man.
We're just so happy and honored to have you, man. On
Thank you.
Vic and the Zildjian side, and wish you the best of holidays with the family.
Thank you. Same to you, Joe. Thank you, brother.
You got it, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. For sure.
All right. Thanks again. All right, everybody. Check this out and spread the word about this video and let people know about Nate and everything he's doing. All right?
Cool.
All right. Take care.